When Prince Maduka returned to the palace, the thought of Ifeoma in Anyanwu's arms irritated him.
What does she even see in him?
He said angrily. Soon, he summoned two of his trusted guards. It's time we teach that animal a lesson. He should know better than to go after what's mine, the prince said angrily. As they arrived at Anyanwu's home and knocked, Ifeoma excitedly opened the door, thinking it was Anyanwu. Her joy twisted in terror as she saw the prince and his guards. The guards seized her, dragging her to a secluded part of the forest where feet hardly tread. Maduka, leave me alone. I don't want you. I love Anyanwu, Ifeoma screamed with desperation in her voice. These words broke Maduka. The thoughts of rejection broke his heart even more. The sting was unbearable, fueling his rage. He dismissed his guards, telling them to watch over the place and make sure no one crosses through. Alone with Ifeoma, he forced her to the ground and violated her. When it was over, he noticed there was no blood and realized in horror that she was no longer a virgin. Who took it? Was it him? He demanded with his voice shaking in fury. All this while, you told me to wait. But Anyanwu, you let him have you? Unable to contain his anger, he stabbed her repeatedly until she lay lifeless before him. The guards, hearing Ifeoma scream, quickly rushed back. They realized what the prince had done and were in shock. The prince, now in tears, said,
"This secret dies with us. Let it be known that Anyanwu is responsible."
The guards swore their loyalty, knowing the gravity of the situation. Prince Maduka sent one of the guards to go and inform the chief priest of what had happened, while he and the other carried Ifeoma's lifeless body to the palace. As they walked through the village road, the villagers, on seeing Ifeoma's corpse, mourned her and concluded that it must have been Anyanwu, since she was last seen with him. Prince Maduka stood silently among them, his face soaked with tears, but he was pleased that Anyanwu would take the fault for his own crime. Anyanwu screamed in anguish, facing the prince. "Maduka, I know you did this," he said, boiling in rage.
"You tried to rape her last night. I'll kill you myself."
His eyes burned with fury.
"What?"
Ifeoma's father roared. "How dare you accuse the prince of such lies?" The prince, with tears streaming down his cheek, cried harder.
"I would never hurt Ifeoma. She was found in the forest, stabbed to death."
Maduka wept even more as he spoke. The chief priest, also known as the Eyes of the Gods, stepped forward.
"The oracle has spoken,"
he declared firmly.
"Anyanwu is guilty. He raped and murdered Ifeoma."
The villagers' voice erupted in hatred. Their voices rose in chorus of condemnation as they demanded his death. The prince, feigning righteousness, raised his hands to silence them before speaking.
"Father, rather than kill him here, let him suffer a brutal death like my lover did. Cast him into the evil forest of no return. Blindfold him and tie his hands, so he may be an easy prey to the lions and snakes. Let him die a painful death."
Anyanwu's heart became heavy, full of pain. He was very sure the prince had something to do with Ifeoma's death, but what weakened him the most was the loss of his lover. He became numb, buried in his pain and thought of Ifeoma's lifeless body. He had just lost the love of his life, and now he stood on the precipice of death, surrounded by a nightmare he couldn't escape. The king, moved by his son's words, nodded in agreement. The chief priest and the elders concurred, their faces hard with resolve. The villagers, their eyes burning with malice, eagerly supported the decision. They burned down Anyanwu's home, beat him until he had very little strength, blindfolded him, tied his hands, and casted him into the evil forest. There, they stood on the other side of the boundary, demarcating the evil forest from the village. That night, it rained heavily in Obiudo. Anyanwu finally found the strength to speak. His voice, thick with pain and desperation, carried through the storm.
If I have done this,
He began.
let the gods strike me dead, and let the beasts and vultures feed on my flesh. But if I am innocent, this village will know no peace. Your crops will wither, your rivers will dry up. The beast of the forest will come for you all. The one who did this will find no rest in his household. Your homes will be cursed with barrenness. And even if you manage to conceive, you shall lose that child when you least expect it. That which is precious to you will be taken away from you when you do not expect it.
As he spoke, there was sound of heavy thunder, and a shiver of fear passed through the crowd. The prince, though shaken, forced himself to laugh. "You are no longer one of us," he said. "Your curse cannot touch us. Go into the forest and perish, you murderer." They all left Anyanwu there, leaving him to die in the evil forest. Anyanwu struggled to move freely in the forest, with his hands tied and his eyes tied. Anyanwu stumbled over roots, rocks, and even skeletons of those who had perished before him. But to his surprise, no beast came for him. The forest, in its ancient wisdom, seemed to recognize his suffering and held its wrath at bay. As soon as Anyanwu got close to the river, the low roars of wild beasts echoed through the trees. His heart raced with fear, and he braced himself for the attack he knew was coming. But just as the lions lurched forward, a bright light erupted from the river. A beautiful goddess emerged from the water and saved him from the beast. Anyanwu could only hear the word sounds, but he wasn't able to see anything. The blindfold was suddenly removed, and he found himself staring into the face of the woman who he had saved at the stream just hours before his ordeal began. "Who are you?" he asked, with fear in his voice. She smiled, her laughter soft and melodic. "Anyanwu, I am your mother, and your mother's mother, and your grandmother's mother," she replied. Anyanwu's confusion deepened. "My mother died when I was not even 10. My father was gone before that. What mother do you claim to be?" "Silence!" she commanded, her voice firm and authoritative. Instantly, Anyanwu's mouth sealed shut, making him unable to speak. "I am the goddess of the sea." As she spoke, her voice echoed through the forest. "I have seen your pain and heard your cries. You are a man with a good heart, and for that, I shall help you." She handed him a necklace. "This will protect you and guide you through the evil around you." As soon as Anyanwu wore the necklace, he could speak again. He thanked her, saying, "Thank you, great mother. I will forever be indebted to you." The goddess smiled once more before she vanished. Anyanwu, now armed with hope and protection of the goddess, began to follow the path the necklace guided him towards. Back in the village, Prince Maduka wept bitterly. The weight of the heavy burden he now carried made the pain even worse. Though he regretted killing Ifoma, he was convinced he had done right. He couldn't stand the thought of anyone else having her if he couldn't. Let's find out what happened next in part 3. Don't forget to like, comment, repost, and share. Also, please follow this page so you don't miss out. Thank you.